Katya, Nastya whispered, her voice trembling, I'm hiding something from you. The weight of her secret had become unbearable, and she needed to confide in her longtime friend. Concern etched across her face. Katya listened intently, ready to offer her support. Nastya took a deep breath before finally confessing, tears streaming down her cheeks. My husband cheated on me. Katya gasped, unable to comprehend the betrayal. How could he, after all these years together? Nastya nodded, her voice filled with bitterness and hurt. Yes, he had been seeing her for 6 months before I found out. He concealed it all, and I foolishly believed that everything was fine between us. Trying to console her friend, Katya reached out to hold Nastya's hand gently, but as she studied Nastya's eyes, she saw a mix of emotions beyond just sadness. There was also determination. 6 months is a long time, Katya murmured, wondering what Nastya's next steps would be. I haven't decided yet, Nastya admitted, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Katya couldn't help but ask, can you really forgive him? Nastya sighed, torn between her love for her children and the pain of her husband's betrayal. What choice do I have? We have 2 kids, Katya. We've been married for 8 years. Our boys have just started school. How could I abandon them without a father? Nastya and her husband, Mikhail, had been blessed with twins, Pasha and Sasha. The boys had recently entered 1st grade, a milestone that should have been filled with joy and excitement. Earlier, on the first day of school, Misha had stood proudly beside their sons, cherishing the moment. Little did Nastya know, even then, another woman had occupied his thoughts. Katya listened, her heart aching for her friend. She understood the complexity of Nastya's situation, the desire to preserve her family despite the pain inflicted upon her. I'll be here for you, Nastya, Katya reassured her, squeezing her hand tightly. No matter what you decide, know that you don't have to face this alone. As the 2 friends embraced, Nastya couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. With Katya by her side, she knew she would find the strength to navigate the difficult path ahead, reclaiming her own happiness and rebuilding her life, whether that meant forgiving or moving on. Because Nastya knew how strongly Katya felt about cheaters, she didn't expect her support in this matter. After all, Katya had divorced her first husband for the same reason. Nastya, children are not everything. How do you envision your future life together? Or do you think he'll leave her? He'll lie and see her again, Katya persisted. He won't. I know he won't, Nastya affirmed. And how can you be so sure? Nastya, just listen to me. Before Katya could finish her sentence, Nastya interrupted her. She passed away 3 days ago, Nastya revealed. Katya's eyes widened so much that it seemed like they were going to pop out of their sockets. What? I hope it's not. Katya started, her voice trailing off. Nonsense. Of course, I would never do anything to her, although, Nastya hesitated. Although what? Nastya, be honest, Katya urged. Well, the other day Misha left for work and forgot his phone. I was about to leave the house when I remembered our plans for the evening, so I decided to confirm if everything was still on. I dialed his number and heard his phone ringing, and in that moment, something came over me. My hands shook. It was as if someone was pushing me towards it. And you discovered the truth. What was inside the texts? I found a series of messages revealing a long-standing affair. They had been secretly dating and even worked together. That's probably where they initially connected. As I read their texts, my heart broke and I felt deeply betrayed. So I decided to send her a message using his phone. And what did you write to her? Katya asked with trepidation. I told her that I wished she were gone, spewing anger and hurt. Wow, although it's not entirely surprising, Katya murmured softly. What surprises me is something else. Misha came back home that day looking pale and shaken. When I asked him what happened, he mentioned that a coworker of his had tragically passed away. Intrigued, I began to inquire further. It turns out that this Elvira had been hit by a car just half an hour after I sent that message. And now you think it's your fault? That's absurd. It must be a coincidence. Unfortunate? Yes. Strange? Yes. But it's certainly not your fault. I hope you're right, but there's something gnawing at me deep inside. Of course there is. Your husband has been deceiving you for 6 months. Who wouldn't feel disturbed by that? And what did you say to him? He saw the message on my phone, so he figured out that I had discovered the truth. He apologized profusely, explaining that he didn't know how it all happened. He assured me that he wouldn't leave me and our children, expressing his love for us. And you believed him? Kaja, it was difficult not to. What would be the point of lying then? Well, perhaps he ran out of options. Her friend's voice had an icy undertone, slightly unsettling, but she might have been right. Or maybe not. Nastya came to the realization that she shouldn't rely solely on others' advice, but instead use her own judgment. However, sharing her misfortune did provide some solace, as keeping it all inside was difficult. It creeps me out, Nastya expressed doubts to a friend. He attended her funeral yesterday. Her friend questioned, and you allowed him to go. Nastya responded helplessly, what else could I do? Everyone from their office was there. When he returned, he seemed so empty. I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. I'm going crazy. I'm trying to figure out my next moves, but my mind is a mess. Get up, Kaja commanded, approaching her friend. Following Kaja's guidance, Nastya stood up from her chair and received a tight hug. Their embrace brought a sense of comfort to both of them. After a while, they headed to the dining room, which was the original purpose of Kaja's visit, to invite Nastya to lunch. During their meal, silence enveloped them as each contemplated their own thoughts. Nastya found herself grappling with the decision of whether or not to forgive her husband for his transgression. Deep down, she still believed that Misha loved her, but that wasn't the only important factor. She knew that her sons adored their father. After all, they were just boys. How could she deprive them of their dad? Although Misha had made a mistake and stumbled, Nastya wondered if there could be some external influence involved. Suddenly, the idea of enchantment crossed her mind. They had shared a soul-to-soul connection and made plans together. Countless good memories had been accumulated over the years, leaving her bewildered by the mere thought of her husband's potential infidelity. It was something she had never considered before. What? Enchanted? Kaja's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Did I say that out loud? Yeah, but I actually believe in stuff like that. Do you want to give it a try? Nastya looked at Katya with a fearful glint in her eyes. How else? Katya replied. Remember Aunt Praskovia? Everyone calls her that. She works on the 2nd floor. I told you about her before. She's a skilled fortune teller. We can ask her anything you want. What do you think? A glimmer of hope appeared in Nastya's eyes. She not only wanted to know about the curse, but also about the future of her family. Should she forgive her husband? Should she pack her bags and leave? Or perhaps, should she kick him out? After all, he had some nerve. Let's go, Nastya declared, pushing her half-eaten plate away. She had lost her appetite anyway. Right now. Katya was taken aback by the sudden decision, but seeing the determination in her friend's eyes, she agreed. The girls quickly cleared the table and made their way to the elevator. They descended to the 2nd floor and headed straight to Aunt Praskovia's office. She had only started working at the job 6 months ago. Numerous companies rented offices in this building. In no time, the rumor about Aunt Praskovia had spread throughout, as she seemed to have a talent for making new friends. Nastya, however, hadn't had the chance to talk to her yet. Now was the perfect opportunity to uncover the truth. After searching for a while, Nastya and her friends finally found Aunt Praskovia's office. The doors were closed, but Nastya knocked confidently. A voice from inside said, "Come in." As Nastya entered, she noticed the office was dimly lit, with closed blinds and turned-off lights. The only light came from the open window, giving the room a slight glow. Aunt Praskovia, dressed in a colorful dress that was far from typical office attire, sat in her chair with a scarf tied elegantly around her head. She looked unique, to say the least, with red lipstick, bright beads, and thick-heeled shoes. Nastya couldn't help but express her surprise, asking, "Aunt Praskovia?" The woman chuckled and replied, "You can just call me Bama Pasha." She appeared to be around 50 years old, but it felt awkward to use that nickname. "Just kidding, girl," the fortune teller added upon seeing Nastya's reaction. "Aunt Praskovia sounds better." Nastya then explained, "Hello, I've heard that you can read cards. Can you do a fortune telling for me?" Aunt Praskovia responded, "So you have questions, I see?" "Yes, a few. Can you help me?" Nastya eagerly asked. "First, let's turn on the lights, girls," Aunt Praskovia suggested. "Lunch break is almost over, and I've had my rest." Katya quickly switched on the lights, making the office appear more familiar and removing its previous intimidating charm. "Please have a seat, dear. Please explain to me what happened," Aunt Praskovia said kindly. Nastya, surprised, responded, "I thought you were going to tell me what happened." Aunt Praskovia smiled and clarified, "I may be a fortune teller, but I'm not a mind reader. Tell me what troubles you, and then I can lay out the cards." Nastya decided to withhold some information. She shared about her husband's infidelity, but left out the hex. She didn't keep silent about the death of her rival, though. Aunt Praskovia attentively listened and shook her head before reaching for her tarot deck. She shuffled the cards and spread them out, studying them thoughtfully. "It's not your husband's fault," the fortune teller confidently stated. Confused, Nastya asked, "What do you mean?" "That woman cast a spell on him. I can see it in the cards. You are not responsible for her death. It was destined to happen. You had nothing to do with it." Nastya inquired about her future with her husband. Aunt Praskovia spread the cards once again and gazed at Nastya mysteriously. "The outcome now lies in your hands. Only you have the power to break the curse," Aunt Praskovia explained. "You must forgive your husband and love him wholeheartedly. Only then can you rid him of this evil." Nastya wondered how she could accomplish that. "You have to forgive him and love him unconditionally," Aunt Praskovia emphasized. "That's the only way to remove the spell." "What if I can't?" Nastya worriedly asked. "In that case, he will be dead within a year. I'm being honest with you. I come from a long lineage of fortune tellers, and I won't deceive you. The decision is yours. You now know your options. Choose wisely." Nastya placed 1,000 rubles on Aunt Praskovia's table, took her friend's hand, and together, they exited the mysterious office. Katya glanced anxiously at Nastya, questioning her intentions. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Nastya replied with uncertainty, "I'm not sure yet." Throughout the day, Nastya wrestled with her thoughts, but upon returning home, she found Misha and the children eagerly awaiting her. Together, they prepared dinner, with Mikhail taking charge of cooking, while the boys sat at the kitchen table, diligently writing in their notebooks under their father's watchful eye. Observing this heartwarming scene, Nastya realized that she couldn't bear to take away the children's father, nor did she want Misha to lose his life. Once the children were tucked into bed, the couple sat down and had a heartfelt conversation, leaving no stone unturned. Ultimately, they made a pact to never bring up the painful past again. Nastya promised herself that she would find the strength to forgive, while Misha vowed to never betray her trust again. They sealed their promises on their marital bed, waking up the next morning with a renewed determination to face life together. Over the next few months, their family bonds grew stronger. Nastya genuinely forgave her husband and found a deeper love for him. Katya, a witness to this transformation, though disapproving of Misha's past actions, understood why Nastya made the decision she did. One day, as Katya rode in an elevator on her way to a business meeting, Aunt Praskovia stepped in as well. "Hello," Katya greeted her cheerfully. Aunt Praskovia returned the greeting with a smile. Do you remember me? Katya asked. Aunt Praskovia nodded, recognizing her as the friend of the woman betrayed by her husband. Yes, she is incredibly grateful to you, Katya added. It's evident that your fortune-telling skills have been passed down through generations. You helped her tremendously. Aunt Praskovia flashed a smile and gently held the girl's hand, saying, I have a confession to make, my dear. I come from a long line of skilled deceivers, so please don't take everything I say too seriously. I'm only saying this because I've been let go again, and I won't be around much longer. The girl, Katya, was taken aback. What do you mean you won't be here again? And how did you find out about the curse when Nastya didn't tell you? Aunt Praskovia sighed and explained, when a woman discovers her partner's infidelity, it's not uncommon for thoughts of curses and hexes to cross her mind. And even if she doesn't believe in them initially, hearing it from someone else can make her start questioning everything. It's a common reaction, like the difference between night and day. There's a certain pattern to it. Confused, Katya asked, but if you knew about the curse, why did you advise her to forgive her husband? Aunt Praskovia paused for a moment before responding. Why, you may ask? Well, why should a good family be destroyed because of a man's foolishness? They have 2 children together. Let them continue to live their lives. A woman's love has the power to heal any wounds, and if this Misha isn't a complete fool, he won't stray again. Or at the very least, he'll learn to be more discreet. Nastya loves him deeply, and she deserves to be with him. Is it worth feeling sorry for him? A mix of shock and disbelief washed over Katya as she retorted, so he should just get away with it. Aunt Praskovia shrugged. Who am I to say? Perhaps he deserved to suffer. Imagine if his wife had left him, and the other woman had passed away. How could he not have fallen into a pit of despair? Maybe it would have led to his demise. But instead, everyone is alive and content. Katya couldn't believe what she was hearing. You can't play with people's lives like that. Aunt Praskovia chuckled lightly. What did you expect? For me to tell your friend that her husband is a scoundrel who can never change, and then what? She would have been devastated, drowning her sorrows in food or drink. Either she would have become overweight and undesirable, or she would have literally drunk herself to death. Is that the outcome you prefer? Besides, the other woman involved is already deceased. What purpose would it serve to leave her husband? Katya shook her head in disbelief. You're toying with the fates of others. I don't participate in games. I mend broken families. My mother and grandmother followed this path before me. But why do you do it? Why? My salary is meager, and this way I can earn an extra 10 or 15,000. Is that so wrong? It's just money. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Why should I be ashamed? If Nastya wanted to leave her husband, she wouldn't have sought my help. She needed a reason to stay with him, and I provided one. Is she unhappy now? No, she and her husband have reconciled. They are doing well. So, did I do something wrong? Of course you did. It was a lie. Why did you tell me? I told you because I got fired. How can I stay silent now? Nastya wanted to save her life. That's why she stayed. If she had a choice. She stayed with him because she still loves him, no matter what. Do you understand? If she had fallen out of love, she wouldn't fear death. But she doesn't know that. How could I not tell her? Katya protested. That's your dilemma, Aunt Praskovia replied with a smile. One thing I can assure you though, if you tell your friend, you'll ruin her family. She'll start struggling again. If you keep quiet, then no one will be at fault. Well, happy holidays. The woman gestured goodbye and exited the office, leaving Katya speechless. Nastya and Misha were celebrating their wedding anniversary that very day, and Katya had promised to join them. It was supposed to be a small gathering with friends, but now she had doubts about attending. She feared revealing too much information. A few hours later, Nastya called her friend. Katusha, just a reminder, you're still coming, right? Nastya asked. Oh, absolutely, Katya replied, lacking enthusiasm. When Kaja arrived at the party, she witnessed the happiness of the couple. Misha adored Nastya, and she reciprocated with tenderness and love. Their children played gleefully near the beautifully decorated table. Observing this genuine joy, Katia lost the urge to divulge what she had learned from Aunt Praskovia. Everything seemed to be going well for Nastya and Misha. Perhaps it should stay that way, as nobody could predict what the future held.